Welcome to Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum sponsored by Capital Community TV and the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk Counties. My name is Sharon Schooley and I am a member of the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization that works to educate ourselves and the public about government issues. We do not support candidates, but provide a forum for them to become better known to our communities. In this program, we will present the candidates for the State Senate District 11. They are, alphabetically, Peter Courtney and Patty Milne. Our format for this forum is as follows. Each candidate has 3 minutes to give an opening statement outlining his or her top 3 priorities if elected. Following that, each candidate will be given 1 1/2 minutes to answer questions that have been prepared by League members on current issues. The candidates were not given the questions ahead of time. At the end, the candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement in which to state the legacy he or she would like to leave if elected to office. Prior to this, the League drew for seating and question order, so we will begin with Ms. Milne as Candidate A for her opening remarks, followed by Mr. Courtney as Candidate B. Ms. Milne.
Thank you. I'm Patty Milne and I'm running for State Senate District 11 because Oregon has lost its way. It's time for new leadership, accountability, and vision. My husband and I moved to Oregon a little more than 30 years ago because we saw opportunity to build a business and raise our family. In recent years, those opportunities are all but gone. We have 3 children, 3 grandchildren, and a 4th on the way just after Election Day. Like you, we wanted our children and our grandchildren to have the opportunity to a good education, stay in Oregon and access the Oregon State Educational Higher Ed system, get a job with a company that's stable and growing, a job that pays a good wage, a job where there's opportunity to increase their standard of living. I've knocked on just shy of 10,000 doors in this campaign, on this campaign trail, and what I'm learning reinforces what I already knew as a Marion County Commissioner over the last 15+ years, and also with my extensive involvement in community organizations, serving on a variety of boards. The realities are harsh. The number one issue is jobs. We must grow our economy. 98% of our businesses are small businesses, and they're struggling. They're scraping by to keep doors open. At the same time, our large corporations, with their armies of attorneys and accountants, have been able to gain special favors through the legislative process, land use deals, taxing incentives. And these deals may be just perfectly okay for Nike and Intel. The question is, shouldn't they be good for every business so that we can grow our economy? Public safety, government's number one responsibility. Why do people have 5-foot chain link fences with padlocks around their homes just to get to their front door? And then once in the front door, you got all these dogs barking and surveillance cameras. It's because they're not safe. There's crime in the neighborhood. As a county commissioner, I chaired the Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council, and I was stunned as we followed the legislation every year, and particularly the last few years, to take funding, my opponent supported taking funding from the state police, closing down prison beds, jail beds, letting violent criminals out of jail early, allowing child molesters to take their names off the sex offender registry. Education, our state is failing our children. We are 49th in the nation for high school graduation rates. We're at the bottom of the barrel in every category. Teachers want to teach. Let's let them teach. Let's give teachers, parents, and students the tools and the opportunities they need for students to succeed. State government has failed the people, and that's why I'm running for Senate District 11. It's time to put people over politics.
Mr. Courtney.
Thank you. And I want to also thank the League of Women Voters, Marion and Polk County, and CCTV for hosting this event to try to bring to the voters and the people of District 11, the Mid-Valley, more about the issues as well as government. My name is Peter Courtney, and I am the state senator that is representing District 11, and that is the subject of this particular League of Women Voters CCT discussion. I have been the state senator for some 12 to 14 years, and I've been in the legislature going on some 30 years. I've had the honor and privilege to serve the Mid-Valley and to serve the people of this capital area, as well as to serve the state of Oregon. The state legislature, as you know, does serve all of Oregon. It is a remarkable legislature and is basically considered among many national organizations to be one of the outstanding state legislatures. This organization asked us to specifically speak to our three issues going into the 2015 session. And I might also say the February session as well. We now have an annual session in Oregon. So when you speak of 2015, that is the long 160-day session. We now meet every year, and we have a shorter session in February of the even number of years, which is up to 35 days. When I think of issues, there are so many. Probably as big an issue as there is in our state, and will always be, always be, will be education. Now, education is preschool, it's K through 12, it's community colleges, it's higher education, it's trades, it's continuing education. And that is the way that our society evolves. That is the way that we deal with our issues. That is the way we give every person an opportunity to fulfill who they are and what they are, as well as to benefit this great state. That is always going to be there. Now, I think last session we were fortunate enough to spend over $1 billion more in K through 12. That was a major breakthrough. We were able to bring back the school year. The economy got hit pretty bad in 2008. We also are working dramatically to streamline this entire system so the classes taken in high school could be transferred into college, as well as those in community colleges can move on to the four-year institutions. That has to continue to be prioritized regardless of who's elected. There is one other issue that is very painful to talk about, and often people do not want to talk about it, and I understand that. That is mental health. We are just starting to comprehend the magnitude of mental illness disease in our great society. It affects all ages. It affects all peoples. It affects all parts of our economy. It affects all ways of life. Last year, we passed a major comprehensive piece of legislation in the state legislature, which we're just starting to implement over 6 years, which designs programs for the young and for those that are older. We need about another $130 million to fully fund it come this next biennium. That is something that has to be prioritized by this legislature. It's something that I'm very proud to be a part of, but I'm still learning in this area. I'm still learning, and I know that we continue to need that tremendous leadership, which is the capital, since this is where the Oregon State Hospital is the forefront of that. The final issue isn't really an issue. You could talk about many things. One of the things that I think we need so much is to finally bring about governance.
The first question the League has, Ms. Milne, what two things can state government do to improve employment opportunities?
As I mentioned, 98% of our businesses in Oregon are under the classification of being small businesses. And I mentioned that some of our large corporations, and we're very grateful that they are here in Oregon, have gotten some special deals. It's really important to grow the economy that every business has the same opportunity to these special deals. There has to be a level playing field. There can't be winners and losers chosen by government because of pieces of legislation. As businesses thrive, whether they be large or small, as they're able to grow, when they're uninhibited, the taxes, the new taxes, fees, and regulations that are constantly piled on from one session to another, the only certainty most businesses feel is the uncertainty of what will hit next. So the state legislature really is responsible to provide some certainty to help them plan, help businesses plan, work out their business plan, know whether they're going to be able to hire people, whether they need to make some adjustments in their business plan.
Mr. Courtney.
Thank you. I think, first of all, the last special session passed a major tax cut for small businesses, as well as we also, it's been referred to the things we've done for major businesses, which, by the way, everything the legislature did for the major businesses are very much available to all businesses. They're very much available. They were not just done to favor one form of business. Those kinds of tax cuts I think are going to be very beneficial. But I do think you have to look at the gross receipts tax. You need to look at the estate tax, and you need to look at capital gains. Again, I think that that is something that we need to look at to see if we can't make some adjustments there. But I think you can do more. I think you have to start to forge more partnerships between the public and the private sector. This is particularly true in the area of tax structure. I think you're going to have to restructure this tax structure of Oregon. That will also help it generate funds, hopefully, for K-2 and education. Because I think one of the big things that can happen there is the stronger we are education, and particularly in your community colleges and your trades and things, that feeds into what you can do in the job creation market. So I think the deal is that we should work harder on partnerships between the public sector and the private sector, as well as look at the tax structure. And I think that is our way to really motivate the economy and also to grow it.
The second question to you, Mr. Courtney. How would you rate the early results of the Affordable Health Care Act on healthcare in our region, and would you propose any changes?
The results that we've heard from just about a week ago is that the Oregon Health Science University just revealed statistics that except for about 5% of Oregonians now have health insurance. So I think while there was early struggles, we are reaching the point where we are providing accessible and affordable health care to our people. It's been a tough startup. It's well known that in Cover Oregon, we struggled mightily there with the public corporation model, which while it was very successful with the Oregon Health Science University and safe, it hasn't worked for Cover Oregon. So I think we need to restructure that and perhaps look at it, bring it into the insurance division or or DCBS, for example, a division on businesses. But I do think in the end, and we started out, and we thought we did very well in health, the whole health area for years in Oregon. The problem is we struggled with the combining of the state and the federal systems. I think though today we're coming out of it, and I also feel very strongly that we have done a great deal to get to affordable health care, to being accessible to all Oregonians, and I'm feeling pretty good as of this moment during this interview.
Same question to you, Ms. Milne.
Would you read it again, please?
Certainly. How would you rate the early results of the Affordable Health Care Act on healthcare in our region, and would you propose any changes?
There are two things relative to early results. One would be the number of individuals who do, in fact, have health insurance, and is it affordable or not. And the other thing, of course, is no one can overlook this horrific failure, $200–300 million just wasted on this IT, trying to get the Cover Oregon computer system working. We need health care reform, yes. There are many people who are suffering terribly without health care. The answer, the current way of trying to bring those people to health care and reduce the cost has not worked at all. The money has never been there, the money is not there, and the money won't be there when we look at long term. I just heard this report recently. It's going to cost $200,000 to get just to the legislative session, then to try to figure out what to do. Premiums for individual families, I've had a number of families call me where their premiums have doubled and tripled, their deductibles have doubled and tripled, and how on earth do you afford it? And the other really interesting thing is in all these healthcare reforms is two families with two young teen boys, and the dads are saying, why do I have to pay for female health care when I have two teenage sons? And this is not including the wife. It's not a system that's working well, and there's much that can be done to straighten it out.
The third question is also to you. Are there any of the ballot measures about which you feel strongly, and why?
There are 7, 8 ballot measures. They are all extremely complicated. The world has gotten that way. I'm very concerned that in most every ballot measure, I really urge people to study very, very carefully, because these are very complicated. You get very strong positions on both sides as to why it's good, why it's bad. So please study that. I think the one for me that is very clear is the recreational use of marijuana. I chaired the Marion County Public Safety Coordinating Council for 10 years. I've worked very, very closely with law enforcement, and I am endorsed by the Marion County Sheriff, Jason Myers, and the Marion County District Attorney, Walt Beglau. And when law enforcement says this is not a good thing, it's not a good thing. I mostly worry about our children, and I want to make it real clear that medical marijuana, dealing with that and the potential advantage for addressing health issues, that's a separate discussion. Recreational use, I'm very concerned as you have brownies or other food products in the home that mom and dad or an aunt and uncle may be consuming, and young children get into these products. In the state of Colorado, where they're already into this, there are many more children, small children, babies being admitted because of these overdoses. We should be watching what's happening in Colorado and Washington and learning from it before we implement it here.
Mr. Courtney.
Yes, there are many, you have a number of ballot measures that will be on the ballot that all of us will be voting on. The marijuana one, which has just been spoken to, is one that I don't support that measure, and I realize there's a lot of people that are on both sides of that issue. I am convinced with the magnitude of drugs that are out there in our society. And I'm also concerned about, where I'm watching the states of Washington, states of Colorado, both of which have legalized marijuana. They are struggling with how to implement it. So I cannot support that measure. The issue of the driver's card is out there, and that is controversial, involving individuals having a driver's card who have still not satisfied the requirements here to be a citizen. I supported that measure. The major parts of the agricultural community supported it. Again, it's a controversial measure, but to the extent that there will be some driving involved in terms of safety, and especially rural Oregon, I think that's a positive measure. That will be on the ballot that you'll be voting on. You'll be voting on an open primary, the top two it's called. I support an open primary. I don't support this measure, though. I pushed an open primary measure through the legislature in the past, but it wasn't implemented correctly, but I'm opposed to that. The GMO measure I do support, genetically modified crops and things. That is a statewide measure, very big measure. I'm going to support that one. Finally, the bonding, being able to sell bonds to pay for college education or help pay for them. We put that measure on the ballot. You'll be voting on that to help lower the cost of higher education. I support that measure.
Question number 4 is also to you, Mr. Courtney. Many articles are written about the negative aspects about education in our state. What do you consider to be the positive components or directions?
We have, this is a new experiment. We are allowing the 7 public universities to go on their own with individual boards. Hopefully that's a positive measure. We have 17 community colleges. We are increasingly passing legislation to allow students in high schools in particular to take classes which they could easily transfer on into community colleges and higher education. I think that is, we need to do more about that, but I think that that is a very, very big measure, and that we should work harder to get that done, because I think the more a young person can get done in their high school years towards college, I think that incentivizes them and helps the system. The last thing is, I do think we have to find a way, a dedicated source of funding for K through 12. That one concerns me, because I think as long as they have to share in the amounts of the general fund along with community colleges and higher ed, I don't think we can get the job done for all 3. So we think we desperately need to have a dedicated source of funding for K through 12 that will stabilize that system and stabilize their ability to have the proper number of teachers, as well as the right class size.
Ms. Milne.
So the negative?
Many articles are written about the negative aspects about education in our state. What do you consider to be the positive components or directions?
Well, I'm very discouraged, as I pointed out initially, with our horrible performance here in Oregon. Some more really sad statistics include, just to give you an example, on national tests, only 23% of Oregon 4th graders are proficient. Only 30% of 8th graders are proficient. And then there's a horrible problem with young people who go on to the community college. You used to think it was a 2-year experience and you get an associate degree or a certification. Recent information shows it's taking 3 years, and of course too many, far, far too many students going into the community college and also to the four-year colleges need remedial math and remedial English. So there are a lot of things that are of grave concern. What's wonderful about modern technology is now we have available online classes. We do have more creative thinking about high school students taking some college classes and getting dual credit, and that's wonderful. We have technical schools are now beginning to get more emphasis once again, and that's a really positive step forward. And homeschoolers, homeschooling is parents, I mean, bless them for what they do. There are many, many choices in education that are available to meet individual student needs, and we need to ensure that the parents and the students have access to those many opportunities. One final thing is I do very much respect and appreciate the wonderful, wonderful teachers we have.
Question number 5, Ms. Melnick. Could you suggest 2 ways that you would support to increase state revenue, and what would be the impacts of your suggestions?
Grow our economy. Government doesn't create jobs, but there is much that government at all levels can do to create a more welcoming and a more fair, a more level playing field for all businesses, and to build the business, hire more people. Oregon is well known for startups, but Oregon is also known for these startups do not grow. And the reason that they don't grow is because of taxes, fees, and regulations. If you're wanting to get out of the basement or the garage with your wonderful, creative, innovative new gadget, and you decide that adding another person would really help expand the business, then you're looking at all the employment costs, the benefits, and on and on. You also then are facing, most often, some land use, some county land use regulations that are going to cost you a lot of money. So most of these startups don't grow. They stay very small. Consequently, they don't add people. Growing our economy, however, and helping businesses thrive will put more money into the state, create more money, more revenue for state government to support the services and the programs that Oregonians rely on, particularly our vulnerable among us who do rely on government services. Growing the economy, creating more jobs, more businesses that are successful is the best way to bring more revenue into the state government.
Mr. Courtney, same question.
Could you just repeat it again?
Certainly.
I like this.
Could you suggest 2 ways that you would support to increase state revenue, and what would be the impacts of your suggestions?
Okay, 2 ways. I think, first of all, e-cigarettes, we're going to have to look at e-cigarettes as a source of funding. It's going to have to be dedicated. We increased the cigarette tax and dedicated it to mental health in that special session last September, and we had that, because I think you're asking that question. There's that one. The issue, we're an income tax-driven state. The burden of the income tax is significant in this state. You're going to have trouble going there. So the other taxes that exist, they're basically, you got fees, you have selective sales taxes, and so I do think in terms of a new tax, and that's maybe where I think you're asking me, the e-cigarette tax is an issue you're going to have to look at. Now, any other source of revenue takes a supermajority in the Senate and the House votes, which is very hard to come by. You're going to have to combine both a situation of where you have a business deduction tax. You're going to have to reduce a business tax, I think, if you're going to adjust and increase any other existing taxes. So it will take that combination to take place. That's what we did in that special session. That will take Democrats and Republican works together. So that is where I see the sources of coming from. One, new e-tax on the e-cigarettes, in that new situation where we reduce business tax and you combine it with some increase in existing tax, and you have both sides being willing to do that.
And it's time for our closing remarks. Mr. Courtney, you proceed.
Thank you. Sharon used a remark in her open remarks that caught my attention. She said that the League of Women Voters and CCTV was nonpartisan. A very powerful word, which means they're not associated with any parties. I am a member of the Democratic Party. This is a partisan election. But the word bipartisan comes in here. Nonpartisan reminds me of it. That whatever happens on November 4th, and that is the election day, and the ballots will go out, I believe somewhere, I'm told, October 15th. And so they will be coming to your homes 16th, 17th, 18th, and 19th, and people will be able to start to vote in the state. One of the things that is really very important to me, and I think very important to this part of the Oregon and to all of Oregon, is men and women being chosen who have views, who have core values, who are Democrats and Republicans, who come from different parts of the state. And when they move into the legislative branch of government, they understand that even though I feel very strongly about who I am and what I am, I have a responsibility when I take that oath of office on the opening day to make sure that I make that legislative branch work, whether it's for the educational components that we've talked about here, whether it's for the public safety components that we've talked about here, whether it's for business that we've talked about here, whether it's for the environmental issues, which we haven't really talked about, which are big, whether it's for the transportation issue, which are very big, which we haven't talked about here, but that is a big issue, whether it's about balancing the budget, which we must do. It is going to take a certain number of men and women, Democrats, Republicans, saying, when this is all said and done, I must find a way to reach across the aisle, which is a favorite phrase, but more importantly, to get along and to deal with people who I don't necessarily agree with, but I respect and I admire, because they were chosen by people in this state to represent them in the greatest form of government the world's ever known, the legislative branch of government. That is why I'm running, and that is why I'm honored to be on this program. I ask for your vote.
Ms. Milne, your closing remarks, please.
Okay. Thank you. Many thanks to CCTV and the League of Women Voters, Marion and Polk County. It's much appreciated to have this opportunity, and it's a great community service to make available to the voters the opportunity to hear the candidates. So thank you very much. Oregon can, once again, have a thriving economy, good schools, safe, livable communities, and be a place where people can grow successful businesses and raise healthy, thriving families. I'm confident of that. Oregon can once again be proud of who we are, proud of what we do, and proud of what we stand for as a state, all of us together collectively. It's going to take new leadership, new ideas, and a new vision. You have a choice, and I really, really encourage voters to vote. And of course, do your homework. Supporting the status quo and the path of deterioration that Oregon's been on over the past decade is an option. The other option is to vote for people who will stand strong against the status quo and dare to move Oregon forward in a positive direction. People who do what they promise and not change positions under political pressure. Stand strong on those values and principles. I pledge to work hard for you, the people of Senate District 11. I pledge to put you, the people of Oregon and this district, first over politics. I pledge to return Oregon to the state we all love, a state that is a leader in education, a leader in creative, innovative thinking, a state recognized for open, transparent government, and a government that serves the people equally, and a state that we can be proud of. I ask for your vote. Thank you.
And this is all the time we have. Thank you. You have been watching Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum for Oregon Senate District 11. Thank you to our candidates for participating today. We hope you will watch our other candidate forums. Please see the CCTV website for the time and dates. These forums are a public service to help voters become more acquainted with candidates who hope to lead our city, county, and state governments in the coming years. Ballots will be mailed on October 15th and must be received back by the county clerk's office by November 4th. We urge you to exercise your right to vote. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and our partner CCTV, Thank you for watching. Your vote counts.